Welcome back to RSAC Conference 2025. We're recording live from the Cyber Risk TV studio in Broadcast Alley at Moscone West. It's getting a little full out here, final keynotes coming up. I'm your host, Matt Alderman, and joining me for this last interview segment of RSA Conference 2025 is Nick Carroll, Cyber Incident Response Manager at Nightwing. Welcome, Nick.
Thank you and welcome. This is it's really nice to see you guys. It's been an amazing conference. I get to be the wrap up for you, which is fun, but it's been great actually getting to see everyone and see the sights of San Francisco, but really just to get to connect with everyone in this field again. So nice.
Yeah, I always get together with my friends this time of year. It's been a year since the spin out of Nightwing from Raytheon. What's that last year look like for you guys?
It has been an amazing year. I mean, it has been a lot of work. It's been a lot of work for all of the teams. We're having to do this startup on really just an amplified schedule to make sure that we can break away and become our own entity and truly be what we can be and take our mission forward and really drive it in ways that are exciting and new. But we've got this startup energy going, but at the same time, we're carrying with us, 40 years of combined experience across the entire company. So it's this amazing blend of startup culture with actual experience and capability to continue to deliver on really critical missions.
So what's the key kind of focus areas for Nightwing, right? When you look at the cybersecurity space, it's broad, right? Kind of where's your niche? Where do you guys really focus your capabilities into the market?
So Nightwing is really focused on national security, cybersecurity operations, working with DoD, the intelligence community, things like that, doing all kinds of different, operations to support them, whether it be doing offensive or defensive work to help them with testing things and learning out how different things work, but then also applying that across the commercial space. One of the things that a lot of people tend to forget is that critical infrastructure is very important for national security, but a lot of that critical infrastructure isn't owned by the Fed or owned by state and local government. It's owned by corporations.
Right.
It's owned by these corporate partners that are assisting in making sure that we get food and energy and transportation to our homes. And so we're able to do not just the actual intelligence community work and this really deep research and really high-end, cyber capabilities for our federal partners, but we're able to take that and apply it to support critical infrastructure across the country.
Yeah, I mean, critical infrastructures, healthcare, energy, even the financial systems, right?
Yes.
Those are all commercial entities, right? And yes, the government drives some stuff there, and CISA's done a really good job of bringing stuff in capabilities to light, but they're owned by private companies. Right? And so how do those companies deal with it? And what I see in my career, you have different levels of maturity across those industry sets.
Absolutely.
Right? Financials have been regulated for a long time, so they're more mature typically on average. Healthcare, not as much. And then you move into energy sectors, and various energy sectors, they all vary, right? And so they need help, I think, really helping them bolster up their capabilities and protect our national infrastructure, right?
Yeah. Very much so. The levels of maturity does vary a lot.
Yeah.
We've got industries that have been regulated for a long time, like finance and healthcare. And so when we assist clients in that space and we're working to do, cyber defense with them, we tend to do a lot more stuff that is higher on the maturity scale for, helping them close really advanced systems up. Working on doing pen testing with them, working on doing proactive threat hunting. Yeah. And that's different from, say, if we were working with a smaller local government, like municipality kind of thing, where they're doing, stormwater or something, right? The maturity isn't really there where they need, I need a pen test every year to find out the new holes that I haven't closed yet. You can go in and be like, hey, let's start with the basics, the cyber hygiene, let's get you squared away, and let's get you resilient so that you can actually be, a proper member of a defended national security posture.
Yeah, so you talked about cyber hygiene. It's one of those foundational issues. Where's the biggest gap you see in the practice around gaps in cyber hygiene?
I wish I could say that everybody had the best cyber hygiene already, because we've been talking about it for years now,
right.
And it's a solved problem. But the reality is that we support clients in Fed side, in state and local government, and in commercial side, where we're still seeing a lot of gaps and misses in things like MFA adoption, right?
Right.
So a lot of the threat actors that my team has to respond to and deal with, they really like that edge networking technology for VPNs and your cloud infrastructure and stuff, because it's a really easy entry point for them. And we're still seeing a lot of, shared credentials or passwords that never expire, or even just, zero MFA on those kinds of solutions, or minimal patching on VPN systems, where it's like you're not patching the edge devices. Everybody has moved to a point now where you have to have EDR. You have to have, this endpoint piece, and you've consolidated this really strong internal security piece. But a lot of our edges, there's no EDR for a lot of firewalls, things like that, right? There's no EDR for VPN appliances. So you wind up having to really focus down on doing proper hygiene basics with MFA, strong passwords, strong patching policies for those edge pieces to actually lock things down and make sure you're not allowing people to slip through.
And it's not just MFA, it's phishing resistant MFA now, right? Because we've seen so much with these MFA attacks that it's not just implementing MFA for the sake of MFA, it's deploying the right MFA as well.
Yes. Yeah, that's a big thing now. It's always this cat and mouse game with security where it's like we do something and the attackers come up with their answer and we come up with an answer. And we're seeing that start to happen with the phishing now, where they're phishing for MFA backup codes, they're phishing for device activation codes, they're phishing for the pieces that allow them to bypass the MFA. And if our users aren't trained how to spot this new wave of phishing, they could fall for it and they could accidentally compromise the MFA system itself.
Yeah, those are those foundational elements that slow us down. Let's talk about cyber resilience for a second, because it's something that's been in the news a lot. What do you have to do to prepare yourselves to be more cyber resilient? Because it's not necessarily the same, right? There's some nuances to what you implement that also help protect you, but cyber resilience is more than that. It's how to make the business resilient, and if there is an attack, how to recover fast. So what are those other things that people have to think about under a cyber resilience kind of program?
So that's a really big thing now, is that you have to begin to incorporate other teams outside of your SOC and outside of your traditional cyber team. You have to bring in IT, you have to bring in human resources, legal, communications. They have to understand their business operations, how their business operations interconnect to everybody else, and what it takes to rebuild and move on if the worst happens. But really, we're starting to get to a point now where it's not just enough to say you have to be resilient. Because when you think of resiliency, you're traditionally thinking about recovery, or
is it business? So let me ask this question real fast while you're answering that. Is cyber resiliency just business continuity and disaster recovery 2.0, or is it more than that?
I think it has to be more than that.
Okay.
We have to be adopting proactive cyber policies and proactive cyber, defenses into your resiliency program. Because if you look at recovering from a ransomware attack, it's great that you can recover, but you were still down for 2 weeks while it happened and business stopped. And you can't have that if you're like a healthcare provider, right? You cannot fall back to paper records or turn people away all the time, because you're actually impacting patient care. So you have to be able to say, yes, not only do we have the ability to recover, and we've tested and we've got the policies for these things, but that we're actually implementing something like proactive threat hunting, that we're implementing true vulnerability management, that we're getting ahead of these things that could push us into a position where we have to fall back.
How important is tabletop exercises in your cyber resiliency program?
They're still very important. I know people are saying it's not as exciting, or it's the thing that you've been doing for a while, but it's still something you need to do. It's still something that allows you to really test stuff. But the way to do it now and to make it proper and to get the best value out of it is, like I mentioned with resiliency, going beyond your SOC team or anything like that, right? Same thing with your tabletop, If you're not bringing in your communications team, your HR team, your legal team, so they understand, hey, this is what we have to do, and that we've tested those communications path flows. We've tested, the handoffs. We've tested those pieces so that we can say, yes, we can do this quickly and get back to business over the entire entity. Then you're not really doing yourself a favor by doing the tabletop if you're just doing one tiny piece of your whole entity.
Well, I'll give you an example. When we did our first tabletop in my day job, it was a ransomware attack, but it was focused on a SaaS-based application. And the first question we had to figure out is, well, who's our contact at SaaS company XYZ? Because we don't know if it's their problem or if it's our problem or what happened, right? And when you look across the business and look at all the different things that are in the environment, you realize that you have these dependencies that you don't think about initially, and the only way to truly test them sometimes is to actually go through the exercise and go, all right, who's got this company's contact information? It opens your eyes in a different way.
Really does.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so the other part of your practice is threat hunting.
Yes.
How does threat hunting tie into this? I mean, I know the basics, but is it to test your resiliency? Is it to test your cyber hygiene? Is it a combination of both? How should people think about leveraging threat hunting in their program?
So it's a little A and a little B, right? The reality is, like I mentioned, you have to be proactive nowadays in your resiliency. You have to be proactive in your entire approach that you're taking. And so if you can say like, hey, we're going to do a tabletop, and we're tabletopping based on this ransomware group because we know this ransomware group, really likes our industry vertical. They really like to hit healthcare providers. They really like to hit, finance or whatever, right? So we're going to look at their tactics and techniques, and we're going to see if we can recover from them. Well, you can take that same thing and apply it to threat hunting, where you can say, okay, I know this ransomware group really likes healthcare, and I'm a healthcare entity, and I know that they use this tactic and this technique, and they use this tool. So let's go in and let's say formulate our hypothesis for our hunt, go in and test our tool sets and test our logs and see like, could I catch that if it came into my environment? Could I see if you deployed that tool? Or could I see if you were doing that lateral movement in that way? And really making sure it's like, okay, if I have it, great. And if I don't, then we can go, all right, what do I need to get there? Do I need better visibility? Do I need to tie into different systems? Do I need to talk to Bob in accounting to make sure that his system ties into everything else? And we bring all these pieces together so that you have that visibility across everything, so that you can build proper alerts and get your team ahead of it, so you don't wind up being behind it when they eventually come knocking.
Yeah, and when you find gaps, go close the gaps.
Oh, please,
right?
yes.
Please, right? If you're gonna do the exercise, at least take the lessons from that exercise and close those gaps for the next time.
Absolutely. We work with a bunch of clients on things a lot, and we take them, findings on vulnerability assessments or penetration tests, or even in threat hunting, where like where we have this gap, or hey, just so you know, this vulnerability is being exploited in this firewall system, and I know you guys have that. Please patch this right away. And then they kind of put it on the back burner of like, we'll get to it. And then sometimes it comes to be push comes to shove, and it's like, okay, well now we're having an incident and we're having to deal with these things together. And when you go back to that root cause analysis, you dial it back and you go like, hey, remember that thing I told you about 2 months ago that you really should patch and address? Turns out that was the avenue they took to get in.
Right.
So please, let's be proactive, and let's not just say we found a gap. Let's actually close it.
Let's close the gap.
Yes.
Nick, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. If you want to learn more, please visit securityweekly.com/Nightwing RSAC. Again, Nick, thank you so much for joining us on Security Weekly.
Thank you. It's been great.
All right, folks, now we're going to do the live wrap up. Just stay tight. We're going to end this conference on a fun note.